Jaffee Jones. Ellen is incredible. She's a former two-time Emmy-winning TV investigative reporter from Miami and St. Louis. She's the author of not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but 6 vegan books. And that includes Eat Vegan on $4 a Day, Vegan Fitness for Mortals, Vegan Sex, and Vegan for One. And she's almost sold out of Vegan Sex and Vegan for One, so after she speaks, hurry up down to her booth to get a couple of the last copies there. When COVID shut down her book tour, she used her experience in real estate to become a Florida realtor with her vegan longtime real estate broker boyfriend, who's over there. He's awesome as well. She's been a runner for over 40 years, has a gold medal for sprinting in the National Senior Games, and has placed currently in, I'm sure more than this says, but 235 5K or longer races for her age group since 2006, just on plants. We say just as a joke. She's gonna cover all the questions you get, that she gets asked the most, like, how do you do all that on just plants? So here she is, Ellen Jaffee Jones.
Works better back here, they say? Okay. Even though I just really want to run out. What happens if I come out this far? Is it going to work? Okay, good, because I'm used to being really active, and I missed a 5K this morning, but that number was close, 244 5K age group awards, just on plants. Because somebody came up to me at a race once when I was wearing a vegan shirt and said, "You can't run on a vegan diet." And it's like, watch me. That was 2011 when my first book came out, Eat Vegan on $4 a Day. So my story is, briefly, mom, aunt, both sisters had breast cancer. There was so much breast cancer in our family. I was the only adult female without, that a friend of ours who was a doctor at Washington University in St. Louis said, I know there's a company called Myriad Genetics associated with the University of Nevada, and they are, or the University of Utah, and they're going to be doing a study on the breast cancer genes. So, would you like to enroll? And so we did. Our whole family participated, including me. So, as I like to say, genes do not determine destiny. I didn't get all the good genes. And although I would eventually find out, because they don't tell you in these confidential studies whether or not you have the gene, that I don't have the breast cancer gene. Good for my 3 daughters, but I always lived my life as if I did, because it wasn't until I went on Medicare that I actually was able to find out. I do have some other bad genes related to my heart, and so it's a good thing I've been doing this whole vegan thing, because according to the tests, I'm at really high risk of having a heart attack or a stroke. So I do everything I can to just pretend that that cardiac calcium score, which is 1400, it should be 0, which is probably from doing the Atkins diet and probably from being an endurance runner over many years. That can be a contributor as well. Dr. McDougall also, if you know, follow him, he has a very high cardiac calcium score, and as he likes to say, it's really old calcium. It's just hanging out there in the arteries. And the cool thing about when you age and you stay active is that, and the doctors have told me this, my heart has done its own bypass. So you figure out ways around all those blockages, and here we are. All right, obviously I've been trying to bust as many vegan myths as possible. I just keep brainstorming, like, as somebody went by me at the Miami Book Fair and said, saw my book over there, and he goes like, I don't know about vegan, but you had me at $4 a day. How many of you have priced the cost of meat or fish lately? Anybody walk by the meat and fish counters? Did I see a hand go up there? All right, what did you see and how much was it? I'm just gonna run because I didn't get to run today.
It's going up. It's out of
control. Anybody have a number for, say, grouper per pound? $35. Did you see that somewhere? Where did you see that?
Seed to table.
Seed to table at a restaurant on a menu.
It's a grocery store down on the mountain.
So just raw, like just buy me a pound of grouper, $35. Okay, does anybody know how much, if you went to Walmart and bought the biggest pound, the biggest bag of beans you could find, which is 20 pounds of pinto beans. Do you know how much it is per serving? Anybody guessing? It's a nickel an ounce. So that's a dime a serving because 2 ounces dry cooks into 4 ounces cooked. So, let me get this. A dime for a serving of plant protein versus 18 is what I saw at Publix the other day for a grouper. Yeah. I don't know how people can afford to stay on an animal-based diet. Going forward, I've always said, I hope you like the recipes in my book, because there's about 100 in each book, no overlap, because we're all going to be eating this way, whether we want to or not. Reader's Digest, a year after Paleo Vegan came out in 2012, said, they had a cover story called The Real Paleo Diet. And they said we were way more plant gatherers than we were animal gatherers. It wasn't like a wild boar ever ran through our backyard 3 times a day and we could catch it successfully and eat it and not get sick and die in the process. I wrote Paleo Vegan because at the time I was the assistant coach at our local high school for the girls cross country and track team. And I was hearing this whole paleo thing, and I forced myself to read the meat-based paleo books. And I'm going, this is all Atkins again. It's the same high-protein, high-fat diet that, yes, it works in the short term, but at the expense of our heart and our kidneys especially. So we don't need to do this. It's so much better for the environment, our bodies, and of course the animals to go vegan. And I use the word, we can use plant-based, but if you Google the phrase plant-based, you come up with all these interpretations, and some of them allow meat. So I am still sticking to using the word vegan because it leaves no room for confusion or misinterpretation. Going down some of these other books, Vegan Fitness. Again, I was getting, and I still do, get a lot of pushback from the running community, the mainstream running community. There were a series of Facebook posts, don't you love social media, when that Butter is Back cover story came out, and I had a number of people in the running community post saying, okay, we can eat butter again, and that really hasn't gone away. And I would see posts from coaches and their teams going to get donuts after a competition. And it's like, this is just not an excuse. It's not an insurance policy. You still have to have a good, solid diet. And the reason that I say that running is my activism, because, I guess I'm okay at it, but, at my age group, sometimes I joke it's just about showing up. But really it's not. There are, because we have a huge retirement community, some women in my age group hire coaches. When I've competed at the National Senior Games, I've seen them bring coaches all the way to Cleveland from UCLA and Los Angeles to not only coach them during the year, but at these events as well. So some people really take this seriously, as do I, just so I can be out there to combat these myths that persist to this day, that vegans don't get enough protein, we don't get enough energy, or this or that. And I always go like, does it look like I have a protein deficiency? I don't think so. We stress, sometimes people will wonder, am I getting enough macronutrients? There are tons of apps that you can track all that if you want to. But if you have enough energy to get up in the morning, I'll say to Troy, do you want to do a 5K this morning? And he goes, oh, no, not again. But we do it, and we get out there. And if we have that kind of energy, then we are getting enough protein. We are getting enough energy. So don't stress. Just get started. And Vegan Fitness does go there with easy programs. As a coach, I saw people get injured, especially the kids, doing what I call the terrible twos. Too much, too soon. So just trying to ramp it up too quickly without giving yourself time to really get into it. When I tell people, oh, by the way, I've been a runner for 40 years, 41. I always let the calendar year, January 1st is my new year, so I have to get used to saying instead of 40 years, 41 years now. Been a runner, been vegan most of that time. People go like, ooh, your knees. And I go, knees are great. Why? Because vegans don't get arthritis, generally speaking. We can't make blanket statements like that. But think about it, a vegan diet is very alkaline, very anti-inflammatory. So women who used to beat me like crazy 10 and 20 years ago, they aren't even running because they've got hip replacements, knee replacements, and just a lot of arthritis. Vegans don't go there. So it is indeed quite an act of luck in some ways to be able to continue to run the way I have. And you know, I've had issues along the way. Sometimes, in fact, I'm going through one right now. I went to my daughter's wedding and I was the last adult to leave at midnight dancing. Right, Troy? I mean, you were asleep by what, 11? I'm still there just doing all the dances and having fun with the kids. And then I played tennis for the first time in 20 years because they were doing that. And then I went snorkeling, you know, kicking the legs, hadn't moved those muscles in a long time because running's really a different set of exercises and muscle groups. So I came back a little sore, and then I did CrossFit because my daughter's like really into CrossFit, so I did 3 days of CrossFit and probably like, I don't know, 40, 60 pounds of the squats. I don't know how many I did, but anyway, like, so I am getting some physical therapy for that now. But you know, you have to learn. The problem with vegans is like we just think we are invincible, that we can live forever, and I'm pretty sure we can. But there's just all this energy, we gotta do something with it. And so you just kind of have to know your own body and listen to it, as I am fond of saying. But sometimes we don't follow our own advice, right? All right, but you know, you do just get so much energy. All right, and then vegan sex, of course. Why do we write about that? Well, I was lucky to co-author with Dr. Joel Kahn, and we see some people holding their hands up there, cheering, yes, because it really does make a difference. What's good for the heart is good for other parts. It's about blood flow. And when you have blood flowing without running into calcium in the arteries or being sluggish, like how many of you have seen The Game Changers? Good, show of hands. All right, so you can think of that visual of the sludgy blood plasma. You know, that's what it's like not only in your blood, but other places. Erectile dysfunction is the leading indicator of heart disease by 10, 20, as much as 30 years. All my life, all my partners, up until the age of 62, were not vegan, and they all had ED, and the doctor said, oh, it's just part of the aging process. Pop your orange pill and watch your eyes turn green, and that's normal. No, it is not normal. Eating a vegan, a plant-based diet makes you so normal, and you can enjoy things that you never thought were possible. I was told to kind of forget about sex at that age, and all I can say is it makes a difference for women too. Think about it. We're eating plants that are rich with not only antioxidants, but all kinds of liquids with water. You know, the fruits that we eat, a lot of liquid in those fruits. So, you know, we have lots of, let's just say we don't have the issues that the meat eaters do. And because this is a G audience, we're not going to get into the details of that, but it really hugely makes a difference. You can read more about it. We talk about the research in there. Dr. Kahn, the cardiologist who co-wrote it with me, talks about the beet study where 17 cyclists were given beet juice 30 minutes before their workouts, and their aerobic performance, their overall performance was so much better than the control group that didn't get that. So Troy and I, every time we race, we always drink our 8 ounces of beet juice. And I used to have asthma and bronchitis as a child. Pretty sure it was the dairy I was drinking. It was like turning off a faucet in the back of my throat, like for so many of us. I see lots of nodding heads. When you get rid of dairy, it's like, oh, you can breathe again. And so to have come from an experience where I couldn't breathe as a child, where I thought that I was breathing my last breath of air on some mornings, to be able to do this just feels incredible. I almost died of a colon blockage when I was 28 years old. I was working in the TV newsroom in St. Louis and just doubled over in pain, went into the bathroom, and 2 hours later they carted me to the emergency room, and the doctors at the ER said they'd never seen a blockage so large in somebody so young. I would need to be on medicine the rest of my life. So I ran to the health food store and read all 5 books on fiber, because that's all there was at the time, and went first macrobiotic, because that's what a lot of people my age did back then vegetarian, then vegan. So it's made all the difference. Never had to be on medicine, and began running at that point at the age of 28, and 41 years later, have we done the math? Yes, I'm 69. So, yeah, you can do this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Vegan for one. How many of you think we waste a bit of food in our country? Have you seen this happen? So the recipes in there are for 1 or 2 people, but the thing is, most of us live alone. And when we do live alone, we tend to mono-eat. You know, I'm as guilty of this as the next person, and sometimes it's just pretty easy to pop open a can of green beans, microwave it, and that's lunch. So how do you do this and not short yourself on nutrition and getting a balanced plan? You know, Warden Farms down there, how many of you belong to a CSA or a co-op? Work at any kind of a garden? I really recommend you doing that. It will change your life. You really not only have access to fresh produce that was maybe just picked that morning, but you're also interacting with the community in ways you're being outside. So that's also very important in our times now. I belong to a CSA or some kind of organic co-op since my children were babies. And I remember the first time taking them to an organic stand, and my daughter popped a cherry tomato in her mouth and said, "Is this candy, Mom?" So when you raise children this way, or if you're around grandkids, exposing them to real food is so important. I've taught cooking classes for Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, the Cancer Project, which was the first national program to be teaching cooking classes on a wide scale with lots of people in attendance. And I remember a girl coming into my class one morning, and she points at this green thing and says, "What's that?" And I go, "Honey, that's a zucchini." She had never seen a zucchini. She said, "It smelled so good what you're making. If you give me the recipe, I promise I'll take it home to my mom and I'll tell you how it was." And I said, "Okay, you got it." So we really need to, especially with what's happened in the last couple of years with children in such isolation, figuring out how to get them outside, to get them at one with nature. There's a lot being written now about grounding. Well, I guess this is astroturf, right? So this is not real grass. But, you know, it's having connection with the earth. It's so important. It's just so important. And in my work in doing media consulting, I ran into children who they were so scared of being outside in nature that they were just really afraid, especially of the dark. And anything like at night, camping in the dark was even worse. So we really need to find ways to bring our kids back into nature. If you have a favorite myth that you want to blow up, I encourage you to get out there and figure out ways to encourage your family, your friends, even if it's in a Zoom call, to think about ways to improve our health. And going plant-based, going vegan is just so much the best way that you can do this for the environment, especially United Nations. If you're not familiar with this little factoid, it's all out there. But they've said the number one thing we can do to reduce our carbon footprint is to give up animal agriculture, even more so than giving up any form of transportation, no matter what you're driving. If it's a Prius, if it's a Tesla, it's still better 3 times a day to vote with your wallet and to go plant-based. Some other tips about how to save money. Look high and low on the grocery shelves. The manufacturers pay big bucks, so you'll see something at eye level, and they want you to impulse buy and just grab it. So don't listen to those inner voices. Be persistent and look for the bargains. Buy in bulk. We talked about the 20-pound bag of pinto beans at Walmart for $0.05 an ounce. People say, "Oh, I don't have time to cook." And I go, "You don't have time for cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. Those are real time wasters." And in the end, it just doesn't take that much time. I have lots of not only money-saving tips, but time-saving tips. The recipes in Eat Vegan on $4 a day were developed when I was a single working mom, and all I wanted to do at the end of the day was come home and get healthy food on the table for my 3 daughters. Other tips are buy the store brands. It's amazing the price differences I've seen between the manufacturer's brand and store brands, Publix, Walmart, Great Value brand. People will sometimes say, ooh, you're recommending shopping at Walmart? And I go, if you live below the poverty level of $23,000 a year for a family of 4, you're already shopping at the big box store. So it's important to know that eating vegan is not an elite way of living. It is not expensive and is insanely cheap. When you think about all the money you save by avoiding a $100,000 or $1 million bypass surgery, and I've witnessed this firsthand, then you are really saving a whole lot of money. Kitchen Divided, the third book on the left there, that was written when I was with my husband, who was not vegan, and he ended up having a heart attack. The book was developed for those of us, how many of you live in mixed marriages where one of you is vegan and the other is not? Yeah, it persists that way. And so I developed recipes that could be vegan as a main course for me, and then my significant other, your significant other, could plop whatever animal-based product they want into it. So you didn't have to touch it, look at it so much. And you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make a drink. And I struggled with this for a very, very long time. And that work was devoted to those of us who are still in those situations. Ultimately, he would go on to have a heart attack, and I spent 30 days in cardiac rehab, and the head of cardiology said, husbands just don't listen to wives. And certainly, he had a lot of people saying, you should go vegan. So you win some, you lose some, and when you lose, you just move on. I know many of us, I've talked to you throughout the day today, you've had those labels of being a cult member or the black sheep of your family. And for me, being the youngest, I had a lifetime to see what I didn't want to happen to me. And I just thought there's gotta be a better way. My aunt died of breast cancer in her home when I was 5. And it was just such a gut-wrenching, traumatic experience. I thought, everybody's really wrapped up in this, but certainly there have got to be better ways. And as I'm fond of saying, there's no money in broccoli. When you understand there's no broccoli association, there's no broccoli lobby, there's no broccoli president, although we do have a vegan New York mayor, how about that? So the world is changing, and we just have to keep being the voice for the voiceless. Sometimes, we find different ways of doing it. I remember one year I thought, well, if somebody suggested I try and be PETA's sexiest vegan over 50. So I sent in my application for that, and I became one of the top 10 finalists. And all it was somebody went out and took a picture of me on the beach. And I really didn't think I would win. And so I didn't tell my husband, my non-vegan husband at the time. And then when I won, I had to tell him. And, this is kind of, when you have these epiphanies, let's just say he wasn't really enthralled with the idea. So that was another reason that we ended up not staying together. But you find your ways of being an activist. And, for me at that point, PETA's whole thing was choosing, they put it out for a public vote at that point after picking 10 finalists. But it was all about levels of activism. Linda Middlesworth has won that. If you know her, she's out in California. She and her husband invented V-Dog, which is a vegan dog food. Victoria Moran, who is a big animal rights activist, has her own certification and training program out of New York City, has been on the lecture circuit, wrote Main Street Vegan and some other books. She's also one of the recipients. So just whatever way you can think of. I was speaking to somebody today who said they were thinking of entering this contest as well. So do anything you can, because we have so little time. I know Troy and I watch a lot of documentaries at night, and there's just a lot of the pictures that we can take with our smartphones now, both out of the water and under the water. I just got back from my daughter's wedding in St. Thomas, and we went snorkeling, and the coral reefs are in deep doo-doo. They are acidifying, turning white, and when we lose that, as Sea Shepherd says, when we lose the oceans, we lose the planet. So, many messages that all of us get to carry on out there. And I know I'm coming up against the clock. I have about 3 minutes left, and I think I'm going to close with some questions, but I haven't done this in a long time, so we're going to see how this goes. I'm going to do a plank contest if anybody wants to join me. My record was 11 minutes at the Tampa VegFest. I'm going to move away from the speakers. So you're welcome to join me up here. I do it on my elbows. And Mike, you just tell me when we're done here and I'll quit. I saw a question over there. Oh, does somebody have a stopwatch real quick on your phone and just run the stopwatch? Okay. Vegan Evan, tell me when you got 0 and when we're starting. Okay. Vegan Evan has started the stopwatch. And Vegan Evan, if you will just tell me when we hit then 1 minute and then 2 minutes after that. All right, ma'am on the left, what was your question? Just scream out your question. Vegan and obesity. Well, I'd like to say they're oxymorons, meaning you can't have, if you're vegan, you can't be obese, but that's not true. You could find any way of eating can be healthy or not to some extent. You still get cholesterol when you eat animal products, but generally, and I think we've heard some other speakers here today, the more raw food you eat, the more you're going to lose weight. I was a guest chef at the McDougall Advanced Study Weekend, and Dr. Richard Wrangham, who wrote the book Catching Fire, talks about when we cook food, back in true Paleolithic days, we were able to release more calories, and that's how our brains grew and our bodies grew beyond the initial primate kingdom. So, yeah, there are lots of ways that you can lose weight on a vegan diet. Some of them are more healthful than others, and you just have to find really what works for you. Certainly ramping up, what? A minute and a half, okay. Anytime you can ramp up the aerobic activity, of course, you're going to burn more calories. And it does seem to be more calories, fewer calories. It's calories in, calories out. So if you're burning more, you can eat more, generally speaking, not always. It always depends. Other questions? Just scream them out, because I can't. 2 minutes. All right, scream out a question if you have one. Why did I decide to go vegan? Well, as I mentioned, I almost died of a colon blockage. That was probably what got me on the journey initially. And then also, when my kids were babies, the St. Louis Animal Rights Team, where I lived, was big into protesting the Ringling Circus. And back in those days, I saw PETA's early videos, those were filmed. They did their cover of elephants being abused. I'm also on the board of Tampa, Florida Voices for Animals, and they were very instrumental in getting rid of ringling in Florida and beyond, and circus animals. All right, I'm going to quit here only because this is AstroTurf and my feet are slipping, so I probably should have done it on the concrete, but anyway, I think we're about done. Thank you all very much. I'm over there at the table. 2 minutes and 52 seconds. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A big